these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office, experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all, in-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
So we always choose a topic, a timely topic. And of course, today the timely topic might be Ukraine. But the timely topic here, of course, what it really affects us here in Houston is crime. And it's affecting everybody across the country. And the way we like to do this, I like to bring on a couple experts to help me with that conversation, similar to the podcast that I do on a weekly basis. And so I would like to introduce my two friends here. Ray Hunt. Ray Hunt, thank you so much for being here. Officer Ray Hunt serves as the Executive Director of the Houston Police Officers Union. He's a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin and employed as a police officer at HPD since 1989. Worked the night shift for 18 years in Southwest Houston, where he served as field trainer and evaluator for new officers, and appointed by then Governor Bush as Commissioner of the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. Served as board member, secretary, vice president, and president of the Houston Police Officers Union prior to being appointed executive director. Ray, thanks so much for your service. And here we have Rania Mankarious. Rania Mankarious is the CEO of Houston Crime Stoppers. I'm sure you've heard of it. I wish there were more organizations like this throughout the country. Crime Stoppers really has an amazing presence here. He created the first ever Crime Stoppers Safe School Institute, a full suite direct service program that became the hub of all things school safety related. The program was so successful, it got the attention of Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who asked Mankarious' team to train all Crime Stoppers across the state of Texas on school safety. Rania is most proud to have built the first ever Crime Stoppers headquarters in the world, the Dave Ward building, Crime Stoppers of Houston, which now sits in the heart of Midtown Houston. Between 2013 and 2020, she and her team have raised nearly $21 million for public safety related work in Harris County and within Texas. She's written over 200 articles on public safety. In addition to researching and writing, she's also argued for school safety in front of the Texas House and Senate and helped change laws in the state of Texas pertaining to camp safety. Rania received a bachelor's degree in psychology, theology, and pre-medicine from Boston College, a master's degree in marriage and family therapy from Gordon Conwell, and a law degree from the University of Houston Law Center. Real underachiever. Okay. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. It's rising across the country. Houston homicide went up 71% from 2019 to 2021. There was 473 murders in 2021. So far this year, according to the latest data, Houston's now the second highest city in the country for homicides. We were number one a few weeks ago, and I tweeted that, and the mayor texted me, "Hey, we're not number one." I was like, "Oh, well, we're number two now." Come on, still bad. Like, we're just competing with Chicago on a weekly basis. Look, why is that? It's because murderers are being released back onto our streets. Between September 2016 and September 2021, 133 capital murder suspects were bonded out of jail in Harris County. Moreover, the Houston Chronicle reviewed murder cases in Harris County from 2013 to 2020 and identified 231 deaths linked to a defendant previously charged with crimes and out on bond. So that's blood on their hands, and that's important to note. These decisions have serious consequences. The review found that 79 individuals were free on multiple bonds, misdemeanor or felony, before the murder charge, and of those, 38 defendants were out on multiple felony bonds. So there's no court order mandating it, but newly elected criminal district court judges take it upon themselves to grant bond to almost all defendants appearing before them, no matter how long their criminal histories are. This is for both of you, Ray or Rania. Since the pandemic, crime has been rising in cities across the country. How does the rise in crime in Houston compare to that across the country?
So, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. And I'll go back a little. In 2018, Crime Stoppers of Houston, which, by the way, is a non-political, nonprofit organization that just focuses on the public safety of our community, noticed that violent repeat defendants were, we would be looking for John Smith, who committed an aggravated robbery, and we would find John Smith. And then 2 months later, we're looking for John Smith again, but although this time it's a murder. And we're like, wait, didn't we just help law enforcement with John Smith 2 months ago? And we started to notice this in about 2018. 2019, we started to really track it. And what we found was that there is a new way of thinking amongst our local leaders. And politics is not something we talk about. But right now, policies are affecting public safety. So it's incumbent upon us to look at it and talk about it. So we noticed this new way of thinking in the counties specifically, where the system was flipped. All of a sudden, the entire criminal justice system was flipped with the singular view of the experience of the defendant. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be looking at how a defendant is treated. I'm not saying that we should have any grace space for any mistreatment of anyone, anywhere, at any time, ever. But what I am saying is to flip our entire system so that we're only looking at the experience of the defendant, that we don't want anyone to be held pretrial because it's not fair, is creating havoc and chaos in our cities. And so we started to track this, and we noticed that there was this revolving door of criminal justice. And we said, this is unconscionable. So our organization started to look at local judges and follow the outcomes of their courts. And by the way, we're allowed as citizens to follow the work of our elected officials. That's not doing anything wrong or calling people out, in a way that's not appropriate. We're allowed to look at the outcomes. Please look at the outcomes of Crime Stoppers. You need to look at the outcomes of all the various organizations that serve you. And so as we started to look at these judges, we said, my gosh, there's so many people that are kind of going in and out. Capital murder, being released on something called a PR bond or get out of jail free card, things we never, ever, ever saw before, ever. And when we stopped to really go to the heart of it, we realized all roads led to this new way of thinking. The defendant now all of a sudden is the only victim in the criminal justice system. We no longer care about the rape victim. We no longer care about the family member left behind after someone's been murdered. We don't care about the woman suffering from family violence that finally had enough courage to get law enforcement involved and to get that abuser. We're discarding all those people. And we're saying, but what is the defendant going through? And I think that flip that we're seeing in our courtrooms, unfortunately, and that is being sort of exasperated by COVID and sometimes hidden under a very serious issue of, COVID's a very serious issue. We weren't making light of it, but a lot of that activity was being pushed and hidden under the COVID umbrella. And now you're seeing it just in Harris County, 113 defendants charged with capital murder walking around our community. That's just what we know. That's just what Crime Stoppers tracked. 165 people have been killed, lost their lives, done, because a violent repeat defendant was allowed to walk into a courtroom and walk out. So as we ask the questions and look at outcomes, we just want communities to be asking the appropriate questions of the appropriate people so we can also bring solutions to the table.
I think you make a great point about what I call pathological compassion. Now, people think compassion is a good thing, and of course it is, but it can go too far. It can become pathological. And it seems that a lot of these judges, they have compassion, but for all the wrong people. It's like you said, they don't have compassion for the woman suffering from domestic abuse. They don't have compassion for the low-income minority communities that are really ravaged by crime. They just have compassion for this person who committed the crime. And again, they should be treated fairly. But we've spent literally hundreds of years in this country ensuring that it'll never be perfect, but it's probably the most perfect system that exists as far as assuring that somebody is judged correctly. And to say that they should be let out after what they've done is crazy. So you've identified one major cause of the spike in crime, which is this revolving door that we talked about. I think we've hit that pretty well. What else should the community know about? I mean, there's just so many factors that bring a person to the point where they're breaking into a truck and stealing a gun, and then to that next point of actually shooting someone with that gun. I mean, what has to happen in this person's life to get them to do that? For many Americans, it's unfathomable.
Yeah, and going back to your previous point, Crime Stoppers from the beginning. And by the way, we're 41 years old. We've been in the school since 1997, when school safety wasn't even a hot topic. We were boots on the ground, going classroom to classroom, talking to kids about making sure they never become a victim of crime or end up in that cradle to prison pipeline. So there are organizations like Crime Stoppers and so many others that are in every nook and cranny of every neighborhood, trying to deal with every injustice you can imagine, from food deserts to healthcare to housing to health insurance to job opportunities to education. Nonprofits step in and try to fill the gaps. Additionally, we have been advocating for quick and speedy trials, for fair and just punishment, for rehabilitation. We have to have compassion on every member of society and every member of community. But at this point, we've tossed all that out to say you have carte blanche really to do whatever you want. And actually, we've started to hear some of our elected officials, not one in particular who I will not name, is not in Harris County. She gave a full discussion on, listen, if your home's broken into and that suspect comes with a gun, it's only to put you on alert. It's only so that he or she, this suspect, doesn't face any danger. Just give them what they want. You have insurance. You'll be fine. Just let them take what they want. That is not having compassion. That's not even being reasonable. That's actually psychotic in a way. You're not helping the family. You're not helping neighborhoods. And by the way, you're not helping that defendant. You're not helping that person who feels the need to go and invade a home and commit a crime. Because once they leave you, maybe they didn't kill you this time, but the next house or 2 weeks later, their 10th house, they're going to pull that weapon. They're going to face escalating charges. So how does somebody end up committing crime? That's the $1 million question. And so many organizations are working to study that, thwart it, stop it, offer every possible opportunity we can to every member of our community. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with the most violent habitual defendants, the law has to be strict and tough, and people have to stand up for public safety.
And Ray, on that note, I mean, what does community policing have to do with this? What resources might the Houston Police Department need more of in order to better combat this issue?
Well, it's always money, of course. We're about 1,500 officers short. That's the city of Houston numbers, not ours. I will say this, that everybody wants to say, other than the activist judges letting people out over and over and over, what else can we do? And I'm just telling you that there's not a lot more you can do. If these are not changed, if these judges are not removed in November of this year, this is going to continue. When she gives numbers about 165 people who are out on bond who murdered other people, that number is probably really 330. Why? Because we have about a 50% clearance rate at the Houston Police Department in homicides. Therefore, it just goes to reason that those same punks are the ones that are out there killing those other people. So it's probably double what they're actually doing. They're being fair, and they're saying this is all we absolutely know about, but there's probably a lot more than that. So then you say, why can't the Houston Police Department clear more than 50% of homicides? Back to what you said about how many people are out on bond for capital murder. Anybody who's a native Houstonian like I am, you know that you didn't used to get bonds on capital murders. Why? There's only two options for a capital murderer who's convicted: death or life. There's nothing else in between. That's a really, really bad person. So we used to have lots of folks, they'd say, hey, so call in and say, hey, so-and-so shot this person. I know who he is. He stands on my corner every day. This is who killed the person. We go pick him up. They don't see that person again for 20 years because he goes to prison. Now they're seeing him in 20 minutes. They're not going to be witnesses for us. These people don't want to come forward and tell us who did it and then have their house shot up. So we don't have any cooperation from good people, and we have zero cooperation from the gangbangers, who are the ones that are causing all the problems. One who just killed this deputy last night at Sharpstown Mall, a gangbanger, lengthy record, assault on a public servant in the past, problem after problem. These are the things that we deal with, but until you stop the water from flooding your house, don't start mopping it up.
Look, so many people don't realize that the judges matter. I mean, it's like number 70 on your ballot, and people just, we don't have straight ticket voting anymore. So that's helpful for this. But that wave that occurred in 2018, it has serious consequences. Again, it's pathological compassion. It's pathological compassion. It's misplaced compassion at best. But back to cops. 1,500. We're at a loss of 1,500 right now. Is that because of a budget problem, or is that because we can't recruit?
And I'll compliment one of the Democrats who I do support. Mayor Turner has given us every single dollar that we've asked for cadet classes. 6 cadet classes a year. We can't fill those cadet classes. Who wants their son or daughter joining the Houston Police Department right now? You're one call away from an indictment. Every single time you make a split-second decision, the chief has 180 days to make a determination as to whether or not you did the right thing. We have to make that in a split second. Sometimes it's going to be wrong. I don't know if you saw the situation that took place in Austin, Texas. 19 great police officers were just indicted by a liberal district attorney in Travis County, 19 of them for shooting people with beanbag shotguns during the George Floyd riots when people were attacking the Capitol, were attacking the police departments, were attacking the officers. Thank God that their chief came out and said, I am not firing these 19 officers. These 19 officers did exactly as they were trained, and I'm keeping them on. Thank God yesterday our governor came out and said, they've made their mind up. Now, if these persons do get convicted, I can make my mind up and clear them. This is wrong what's taking place with our officers.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I mean the culture surrounding policing is very, people have no idea what it takes. I only have somewhat of an idea, but I had a much different situation. I go overseas. I've got air support. I've got really different rules of engagement. It's not my neighborhood. I'm not watching American kids die on the street on a daily basis. But cops do. We're always talking about veteran PTSD. That's fine, but we should be talking about law enforcement PTSD far more than we talk about veteran PTSD. That's my honest assumption, having seen it. And I just think these folks are being left behind, and morale has got to be low. It's amazing that police are still doing their jobs to such an exceptional extent. It's happening in the policing, it's happening on the border, where these guys are just left out to dry. And it's really not fair to our law enforcement and our first responders. Maybe more practical for people with crime on the rise, as those of us in power do what we can to try and stop it. The reality is, if you go get gas right now, you could be carjacked. The reality is, I saw that there was a drive-by in my neighborhood just a couple of weeks ago. What can people do to take those precautions? How should they interact?
Well, for years, we have been calling on the community to be what we call public safety minded. And I'll tell you, in 2013, when I took over Crime Stoppers and I try to go meet with people in different communities, they'd say, I think you're great, but we don't need, no, just you're great. Keep doing what you're doing, but our neighborhood is fine. Move on. And I kept saying, to think about public safety it's not a negative. We think of healthcare. Women think of anti-aging. We put 7,000 layers of lotion on our face. I mean, all the way we know we do. We think of what can we do to make sure we don't get cancer? We think about all this stuff, but when it comes to safety, there's this weird thing where if we just close our eyes and ignore it, it can't touch us. Crime cannot touch us. So now that crime rates are rising and people are starting to say, wait a minute, what were you guys saying, or what were you recommending? We're sort of running with it, because we want communities to be proactive and public safety minded. We want you not to be paranoid, but to be thinking about your safety, understanding what's really going on and what the potential is wherever you go. If that's for yourself, for your spouse, your whomever, your children. These are important things. So Crime Stoppers continually offers free information, free resources, free training. You can find so much on our website, crime-stoppers.org, and we encourage people to do that. And I do want to comment on something Ray was just saying about looking at we don't talk about voting or whether or not everyone should vote. That's just part of being a good citizen. But I would call upon people to get involved in policy. We have incredible local elected officials. We thank everybody who serves. It is a tireless job. But on the county level, it's really important to look at the policies the county is pushing out that touch public safety. Our county commissioners, our county judge, Lena Hidalgo, again, we respect them all. We thank them all for their service. They've been very proactive, saying they've spent more on public safety than any other county judge and commissioners to date. But what are they spending it on? One of the things they're spending it on is, cutting grass and planting trees and planting lights. And let me tell you something, that's great. I had a conversation with a young woman that said, Rania, you don't understand. In our neighborhoods, a young girl will be drugged into an overgrown field where she is raped and killed. I say, great, cut the grass, please, plant trees. install the lights. But could we also hold the rapist pre-trial so he doesn't go out and grab her sister and rape and kill the sister? So we've got to look at the whole picture. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us. I mean, I don't know how many of you listen to, Commissioner's Court, ever testify, ever submit letters, even know what's going on. We started an entire civics class because we noticed so many people would say, and you see this, the mayor has this, we'd be in the community and they'd say, look, that mayor, he's got to stop releasing the judges. And we'd say, wait, what? The mayor has nothing to do with well, that DA, she keeps releasing these criminals on low bond or PR bond. I'd say, but the DA doesn't release people. So we realized the community doesn't understand basic civics, and it was important to get that in order again, so people can respectfully ask the appropriate people questions and work together for solutions.
I've been a very vocal opponent to Kim Ogg, but I will tell you this about Kim Ogg. Kim Ogg has done a 180. Kim Ogg's people are routinely asking for no bond on these turds that are 4 and 5 times on bond. Sorry for my language. So we call them, it's just a generic term for a punk. And by the way, I'm not speaking for the Houston Police Department today. I'm speaking for the Houston Police Officers Union. So I will call out people by name. And I do think that Lena Hidalgo is a disgrace to Harris County. And I do think Lena Hidalgo is a big reason that we're having the problems that we're having now. She's got 2 compadres on there who are helping her do that with Adrian Garcia and Rodney Ellis. Rodney Ellis being the number 1 bad guy. And these folks who first put out there for misdemeanor bail reform, they thought it was a good idea. And I heard them in Austin talking about, a lady goes into the store, she's got 3 kids, she steals a pack of bologna, she gets put in jail, and she doesn't have money to bond out in order to go back to her job. That stuff doesn't happen, folks. Any judge that allows that to happen needs to have their bar card removed. Any prosecutor who allows that to happen, it's the same thing. These are people who, right now, if you get arrested on a misdemeanor, you never see a judge until your first court date. You get out of jail already. So let me just give you this quick example. You got somebody, a lady, this is true life story. She's followed home by somebody. She sees somebody follow him, so she thinks she's done to a heat run and goes around the block, thinks she loses him, goes into her house, goes into her kitchen, sees this person in her backyard looking in her window. So she doesn't play like she sees him. She calls the police. We go out there and we catch this person. This person is a registered sex offender on parole for sexual assault. And guess what? He followed somebody home in that instance, saw her inside, broke into the house, brutally raped her. That person gets a free bond. No judge sees that person's criminal history whenever they give them a free bond to get out. What do you think that person's going to do? They're going to come back out and do the same thing over and over. I tried to get the legislature to pass this session. Anybody who gets out on a PR bond, the criminal history must be attached to that and must be signed off on by a judge. Somebody has to look at that. When you have 5 and 6 rape convictions and you get arrested for peeping into a female's window, we call those 5 convictions clues, folks. They shouldn't be getting out on a PR bond. And that's what Rodney Ellis pushed for, and that's what got passed in Harris County, and we're hoping that gets overturned.
Right. Ray, I've heard the mayor has a plan to buy back $1 million worth of guns. Do you think that the criminals who intend to use their guns will then sell their guns back? Do you think this will be an effective policy?
The short answer is absolutely not. I love this mayor, but anybody who thinks that criminals are going to go turn their guns in for that when they can sell that gun for twice as much on the street to some crackhead, right. I mean, some turd that's selling crack, that's not going to happen. And all you're going to have is a bunch of crappy guns that law-abiding citizens want to get rid of. They go turn them in.
Right. Yeah. It's like a pawn shop. So, I mean, and I've had this conversation with them, and like, we could be much worse off with liberal mayors. I mean, we really could. I have certainly my disagreements with him, but he's never wanted to defund the police. Obviously, he's got the budget for it. So, credit where credit is due. But look, when he questioned my statistics on whether Houston was number 1 and quibbled with, okay, it's number 2 this week. I was like, look, I will have your back publicly. Very, very publicly. Doesn't matter. Party affiliation doesn't matter. I'll have your back publicly if you're going after these liberal judges that are causing this. And he said, well, fine, but you got to go after the constitutional carry that was just passed. And I'm like, I don't see the logic there. No, here's how the argument goes, right? The argument goes like this, from a law enforcement perspective, I suppose, which is that they can't they can't arrest someone who has a gun on them, and therefore that person gets away because it's legal for them to have a gun on them. But my question is, but if you had some kind of valid reason to be searching them in the first place, wouldn't there be some other cause here? I mean, am I crazy to think that so it doesn't seem to be what they claim. The argument doesn't seem to flesh out the way they say it does.
Absolutely. And we got the Houston Police Officers Union got slammed by several liberals whenever we took a neutral stand on that constitutional carry, because we were opposed to concealed carry, and we were wrong on that. And so we said, we're not going to be wrong again. The people, listen, constitutional carry does not allow a convicted felon to carry a pistol. Those are the people who are killing people. The only time that ever came up was the other day when the person got robbed at the ATM. He went to his car, retrieved a gun, and he shot at the wrong person, ended up killing a little girl, which was absolutely tragic. That person could have had that gun in his car without constitutional carry. So as I told Boris Miles, who called me out on this, I said, tell me one person who's been killed by somebody who had the right to carry it under constitutional carry. And the answer is none. The constitutional carry is not going to be the big deal that we thought it was going to be whenever most police groups opposed it, just like on concealed carry is the same thing, or open carry. We want law-abiding citizens to be able to carry weapons to protect themselves. We think that's fair. If we can carry it, law-abiding citizens should carry it as well. Yes, we were opposed to the fact that they no longer required any type of training or anything else when I have to have 6 months of training before I'm able to carry mine. But that was a decision that was made above me. But I don't buy the fact that this increase in crime has anything to do with constitutional carry. It's just a smokescreen.
Yeah, because I mean, intuitively, you can understand that, like, somebody who wants to do a bad thing with a gun cares very little about a concealed carry permit. The problem with a lot of these gun control efforts is that they're self-enforced. And the last people to self-enforce a regulation or a restriction is a criminal by definition. And so it always seems to make sense. Like, it sounds right. And then you dig a little deeper and it just doesn't work. You know, unless you snap your fingers and all guns are gone, you'll never get rid of this problem. We are a unique country in that. And I think there's a lot of people who simply don't want to live in that reality. They wish there was a different reality where we just didn't have guns, but that's just not the reality we live in, and it never will be. And so you have to adapt accordingly. Did you want to add anything, Rania? Or
While you were talking, this has always fascinated me, the gun issue. And I grew up in a part of a country where that, we just never talked about it. I never even thought about this. But I find it very interesting that the people who are most outraged by guns on the street are also part of the people that do things like decriminalize certain crimes. So we decriminalize burglary of a motor vehicle when those leaders know very well the number one thing stolen from a car is a gun. So I don't understand that. You're decriminalizing burglary of a motor vehicle when you know it's a prime avenue for someone with bad intentions to get a gun. We're allowing this revolving door of criminal justice when we know that a lot of these crimes are committed by violent people who habitually commit these acts with a weapon in their hand. But we're letting them all go too. So I just find the whole conversation disingenuous. And it to me, I was asked recently by a media person why the gun issue was such a hot topic. And I said, because it's such an easy soundbite for political parties. It just becomes easy to hide under it and to go with it. And people on the left hear it and get outraged, and people on the right hear it and get outraged, and nothing ever has to happen. Just people get outraged. And so I don't know. I was just sitting there lost in my thoughts on it.
sure.
So I got asked the other day by a leader who I respect, what can we immediately do to stop some of the violence in Houston as leaders? And this is perfectly legal. If you've got anybody who's out on bond for a serious offense and they get arrested again for carrying a weapon, their bond should be no bond or $1 million. If that happens, you will see crime immediately start ticking down, because the same 5% are out there doing the same crime over and over. These aren't new people. These are the same ones. If you did that right now in Harris County, you would see within weeks the crime would start ticking down. But it ain't going to happen as long as Rodney Ellis is telling those judges what to do.
Well, switching gears slightly to the opioid crisis, Ray, from your perspective, how big of a problem is that in Harris County? And
huge. It's a huge problem, and a lot of this fentanyl stuff that's coming across the border is really coming across now since January, when the borders basically just been opened up. It is a major crisis for not just the state of Texas but the entire country. It's coming in here. These people are abusing it. They're dying. They're overdosing. Look at the numbers. Just Google overdoses on opioids.
It's the number one cause of death for ages 18 to 45, I think. Like this is why our border matters. And like the fentanyl is delivered from China, goes to Mexico, and it's carried across. It's not necessarily carried across by these caravans of people, but those caravans of people are used by the drug cartels to create a distraction so that then the drug dealers can sneak across. And this is where walls come in. The reason walls are important in this equation is for security, meaning keeping the people out who are trying to sneak by. Like the vast majority of people aren't trying to sneak by, and a wall won't stop them because they'll just knock on it. But the walls do help when it comes to fentanyl coming across. And it's also we need better technology at our ports of entry, because fentanyl is so small, they can just stuff it in a tire or something and they just drive right across. So that's another issue that we've tried to fund while I was on Homeland Security Committee.
Congressman, your speaker right now is putting up a wall around the Capitol in Washington, D.C. because she knows that walls work, but they're tearing the wall down on the southern border. There's a hypocrisy.
I cannot believe I have to go back next week and see that damn wall. I mean, we were so happy to. It's so stupid. Yeah, I also have to walk through metal detectors to get into the House floor to vote. So DC is a crazy place. Let's not think about DC for right now. It's people are still wearing masks, walking their dogs in the park. Okay, so it's out of control. Maybe last question to you, Rania. You wrote a book on online crime and how to best protect children in the digital era. And I think this is really important to a lot of parents. It freaks a lot of parents out. Freaks me out. What specific threats should parents be most worried about? What is the best approach for parents to help protect their children from online threats?
Well, I'll just summarize by saying, yes, I recently released a book, The Online World, What You Think You Know and What You Don't. And I did it after years and years of talking to young kids who have said, I found myself in the worst possible place online, and I literally do not know how to get out of the situation I'm in. And years of talking to parents that said, I've tried to monitor everything. I've tried to follow everything. It's impossible. And I cannot keep up with the technology. And then other experts like me who say, you know what, just keep all kids offline. And I'm sorry, I'm going to look on this side of the room. Do you guys live with technology? I mean, is it fair to ask any of you, me, all of us in the room? It's impossible, especially in this post-COVID world, to ask people to stay offline. So I wanted to create a roadmap with actual tools parents will understand and kids will buy into, whether you're 8 to 28, and that will keep them safe online. I will say that the foreword of the book was written by Dr. Laura Berman and Sam Chapman. Laura Berman is a very, very famous family therapist, very, very well known. Super Bowl Sunday, not this last one, the year before, they walked into their son's room, Sammy, 16 years old, dead on the floor, because Sammy had purchased a 15-cent pill off of Snapchat, thinking he was getting like a Xanax or a Percocet. Sammy was not a drug user. And that pill was laced with fentanyl and killed him instantly. So you talk about the fentanyl crisis. Now we have pill pushers creating menus, colorful menus that they're targeting to kids, hoping kids will spend 15 cents. They Uber it, they send it to the home. And a lot of kids are losing their lives.
What do you think the motivation, because it obviously isn't money, because 15 cents is nothing. So what is wrong with these people who are doing this?
You hooked, 15 cents turns into a lifetime habit.
Okay.
And then you share it with your friends and you share it with your friends, and the way Section 230 works and other things. I mean, these social media giants have protections that are endless. So the kids are really at a disadvantage, but we want to help parents and kids deal with this technology, which we can't escape and which is really good. I mean, technology is a wonderful thing, but with a really clear roadmap, we want kids to be able to know, identify, and have exit strategies for a whole host of issues. And I outline all of them in the book.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we're working on in Congress on the Energy and Commerce Committee, because we have jurisdiction over Section 230. And so one of my bills, for instance, would prevent political censorship. But there's other bills as well that say, we're going to remove liability if you're not taking down some of these harmful, like truly harmful content, not like fake harmful content that the left wokes talk about, being mean or, you're being this. But no, I mean, real harmful content, like we're going to kill your kid with fentanyl. That's actual harmful.
Well, and I will say one thing, because I have the privilege of sitting with you. I've always found it interesting that social media giants will say it's absolutely impossible to figure out what's being said. And, we'd say, well, trafficking, the sale of children, please stop. Well, we can't find that. We can't identify that. I'm sorry. Post-COVID, if I post something and start to write CO, I get an alert. this is a COVID pro. And I said, well, I was going to write the word
Yeah.
color. I mean, clearly you guys you can track and you guys can weed out content when you want to weed it out. You cannot even start writing the words without an alert coming up across your post. So they have the means to weed out harmful content if they want to.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Any last words? I think this has been a really great discussion. Thank you guys so much for your service to this great county, to our great state. It is much appreciated, and it's good to know there's good people who are dedicating their lives to this. It's really important. It's really even better to see that there's young people who plan to dedicate their lives to this, I hope. So thank you all. Yeah.
Just a few safety tips that I tell to my friends and of course my wife. One of the things is, you saw me on my cell phone, looking at my cell phone for a couple of notes here, but please, whenever you're fixing to go parking somewhere and get out of your car, put your cell phone down, be aware of your surroundings, make sure someone's not following you. They love to follow you from place to place and come in there and grab your purse, grab your laptop or whatever you may have. If you're going somewhere and you got a laptop or something in your car that you want to hide and put in the trunk, put it in there before you drive to that location. People are sitting in parking lots. We call them shoppers. They're just sitting there watching you. When you park, you get out, you pop the trunk, you put your stuff in there. They're going to break into that car. They know you got stuff in there, and they're going to get in there. Secondly, whenever you're getting gas, I got some this morning. When you get out of that car, a lot of people have their phone sitting in the console or have stuff sitting there. When you get out of the car, the first thing you do is turn away from your car to start doing the stuff on the machine. You have people called sliders that pull up right next to you, open that other door, reach in there and grab your stuff, and they're gone before you ever turn around to say, no, I don't want a receipt, or no, I don't want a car wash, or whatever it may be. So when you get out of that car, lock your car. Leave your door open on your side, but lock your car so a slider can't reach over there and grab it while you're inside the car. And the last thing, when you're grocery shopping, especially ladies, don't have your purse in the basket there. As you turn around and start looking at the aisles, somebody just grabs up and grabs your pocketbook, takes off. So just simple things that if you're alert and aware of what's going on, if you're about to park somewhere, you're talking to somebody, say, hey, let me call you back. I'll call you when I get in the house, especially when you're driving home, especially when you're single out there late at night. If you see somebody following you, don't go to that location, drive to a police station.
Good tips. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Rania. This has been great. Thank you all for coming.